My, oh my, I've got new boards on my trailer. Let me show you how I did it. I got a total of, I think, $265 and about 5 hours labor. That's all, and it sure looks good. You'll see that my boards fit real tight. I used green boards that had not been fully dried out. I did not want to put boards in there that might have been warped, and I'd rather have a real tight fit to begin with. Now I know that once they dry well, they'll have a little bit of a gap in there, but the gap won't be very bad at all. Well, here's today's project. Don't know that I'll actually finish it today. I got new wood for the bed of my trailer. It's an 18-foot trailer with a 16-foot bed, and hopefully you can see how bad the wood's rotted out there. Especially here, my foot almost went through that. Now the trailer is 25 years old, and the wood's been replaced once, I think about 15 years ago. It's in rough shape pretty much all over, and the lights aren't working now either. But it's been a good one, and you can't afford to buy a new one now. Good grief, they're so expensive. So I went yesterday and bought the wood. I thought I'd just put it here under the pole barn. That way, if it rains or whatever, I'll have it here. And if I don't finish it today, it's not taking up space in my shop. First thing I need to do is take my boards off, clean out my work area. Well, now that the boards are off, you can see there's really a bad spot there. I think this is the place where my foot just about went through. Yeah, well, it won't be too much work. Take all the boards out. Also down here on the back end, you can see I've got bolts, and these bolts go all the way through. They have lock nuts on the bottom. So I can take that off. I don't have to bend the boards to get them back in place. Well, that sure is a lot easier. I don't know why I didn't think about this to begin with. I can unscrew it and pull it up now. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So I can just knock this one off. There we go. Got one out. I can see the screws right here, so I know where the next frame piece is. So I don't want to hit that with a saw. And I don't want to be behind the saw either. This is so much easier. About 3 or 4 of these at a time. Look there. I guess I skipped that board. Well, that didn't take too long. I took out all the middle boards right there. Now the boards on the sides, I can't cut all the way over next to the frame, so I may have to break those out a little bit. And you can see I still have some of the screws left in there. Some of them didn't break off even with the frame, so I'll just cut those off. Well, the trailer's cleaned up pretty well. It didn't take much at all. The hardest thing was getting all the little pieces of the wood off that were still connected to the bolts. It was real easy. Just come back, take a scraper, clean out all the edges to make sure the new boards are going to set down flush, and take the grinder and cut out the remaining screws that were still stuck in there that broke through in the wood. All right, we had quite the storm that came through yesterday afternoon and all night and this morning, tornado warnings and everything. So I had to cut everything short. But I've got a new wiring kit for this. I'm going to replace all the wiring on here. The holes through the frame are the same factory holes that I'll be using. I've got new tail lights too. Now the tail lights that I've already have on here are probably good, but I'm going to replace them with the new ones in the new kit. And I'll keep those as backups for spares just in case I break one later down the road. Now, these kits, the longest one I could ever seem to find is 22 feet. This is an 18-foot trailer but by the time I run the wire through and then I go from one side to the other side, I never have enough on this end to connect to my truck. So I bought a 5-foot extension piece to put on the end of it. Now, for right now, I'm not going to hook up all the wiring. I'm just going to run the wiring through everything so that when I cover it up with the boards, there's not much left to do. Now, after I do finish all the wiring, I will come back in with a nylon wire ties and screw into the bottom of the wood just to make sure everything is good and tight all the way back. Now, I do have a problem with squirrels. I've already repaired it a couple of times because of the squirrels. If the squirrel can sit up on top, he'll pick up something and chew on it. But if the wires are underneath where he has to reach up or something like that, he'll leave them alone. So I'm going to try and figure out something this time too to keep the squirrels from chewing my wires up. This is a 2-piece. It comes with a tail piece that's supposed to hook into my truck. I will not need this part because my truck's already wired. I have to just take all the bundle apart because my wires have to start from this end to go through all the holes because this big connector is not going to go through. Now underneath the tongue, I have to make sure I remember there's a tube underneath the tongue that the beginning wires have to go through. So that's where I will start. Now there's 5 wires in this. You have the brown and yellow that goes to one side. You have the green and the brown that goes to the other side, but they won't split off until I get down towards the end. And you also have the 5th wire, which is a white wire. That's the ground wire. Now it's going to be grounded, screwed into the frame somewhere right here at the tip of the tongue. So let me go ahead and get started. When I get down on the other end, I'll separate them. Now, one little thing I did just to make sure I don't mess up, I cut the old wires off and left a little piece at each of the lights to make sure that I don't get the yellow and the green mixed up because I don't want the right blinker blinking when it's supposed to be the left blinker. Let's talk about the wood. To begin with, the wood has to be treated wood. You never want to put wood on your trailer that's not treated. It's going to be exposed to all the elements. Number 2, the most important, when you put your wood on, make sure the cup side is down. Now you see this piece, it's upside down right now. If rain happens, rain will soak in and it will puddle there in the middle and it will cause it to start to rot sooner right there. Okay, first step, look at the grain on each one. Make sure all the boards are turned in the right direction so they will not cup when it rains. Step number 2, put in your outside boards first. The 2 outside boards are in place. Now I can slide the rest of the boards in. Now I can see this board is a little bit warped, a little bit curled, so I know I'm going to have a little pressure to get my last board in. I have a paint scraper here and you'll be surprised what you can do with a paint scraper. Thank you for that paint scraper. Well, I had to go back to the shop and pick up a couple more tools to help me out here. I got a couple more putty knives. Now, putty knives are really great for putting in between something that's got to be guided together and provide a very low friction at the same time. They work great for that because they'll keep you from getting in trouble very much. And I got a mud spreader, because maybe I need something a little bit wider, I don't know. This might not help out as much, but it is stiff enough to work. Let me go ahead and stick it in this one right here. There. Stick one of these in here, just in case it pops out a little bit. If I get these lined up enough, then I just have to put the pressure on it to make sure it drops down in there. All right, so I have my last board in all the way down, this far down, but now I'm going to be beating on the other end, and I sure don't want this one to pop back up. So I'm not going to screw any of the other boards down, just put 2 screws in this one right here so that it can't pop up when I'm trying to knock the other end down. That board's not going anywhere now. Well, finally trying to drop in. But it's not being very friendly about it. Had to get the big bore tools out now. I'm putting a piece of used wood on top of it so I don't damage. I try to limit the damage that I'll do to actually my new trailer board. Voila! I've got it. I want to show you about the screws I'm using. These are made by Tex, and these are self-drilling wood to metal screws. That's what you need to put your deck on your trailer with. Now, I could have used some a little bit shorter, but I couldn't find them. There are 2 types of heads on these. This is a Phillips head or a cross head, and this will countersink. The other type of head that you can get is a hex driver head on it. I think it's like a 5/16. But on this, I want to be able to shovel things off with a flat nose shovel, and I can't do that if I'm going to hit the heads of the bolts. So I have to use this type right here. Now, I've made some marks along this bar in front of the axles, and I'll put 2 screws in each board along this bar and also in the bar behind the wheels. The reason I'm pre-drilling is these screws don't drill in very well at all through the wood, but once they hit the metal, they work very well. A little more. There. Well, now that the boards are bolted down, screwed down, it's time to put my tailpiece back in. Look at that, it fits, looks like it fits just perfectly. All right, I've got a 5/16 inch drill bit here, and I'm using 5/16 bolts with lock nuts. Now notice I'm not using any flat washers because I have metal on the bottom, metal on the top. Flat washers aren't really necessary. Pre-drill a hole. Get one of these in there. Put the nut in on the bottom. I'm just gonna get them all started for right now. Now remember, your green and brown go on the passenger side, and your yellow and brown, the other one, goes on the driver's side. Now you'll notice we only brought 4 wires down, but I said also that the white wire was the ground. This is the white wire here. This one has it coming out. Now what I had before relied on the connection here to make the ground, but these require a separate ground connection on there, so I'll have to put a screw in when I do it. Something else, you might think, well, if I put the wires up on top, water's going to get in. But on the bottom, there's a little drain hole right here. Now you notice I'm leaving the washer on this side. I'm putting it through the holes. There it goes. And this has little grippers on it, so it acts like a lock nut. Take my 7/16 wrench. Get it good and snug. Don't have to try and break the bolt, but you want to get it good and tight. Now bringing my wires around to the side, I'll have to drill a hole and put a screw in to ground this to the frame. Now if you remember, I bought a 22-foot section for an 18-foot trailer with 16-foot boards, which I assumed was going to be long enough. By the time the wires came all the way down the other side, and then the yellow-brown wires came over here, the yellow-brown wires were going to be short. So I drilled 2 holes so I can make this come across diagonal. Now I have enough. Now if you remember, I bought a 22-foot section for an 18-foot trailer with 16-foot boards, which I assumed was going to be long enough. However, by the time the wires came all the way down the other side, and then the yellow-brown wires came over here, the yellow-brown wires were going to be short. So I drilled 2 holes so I can make this come across diagonal. Now I have enough. So I know this is the shortest wire, so I'm going to connect this side first. Then I'll pull the wires back, and then I'll connect over to the other side with the green and brown for the passenger side. And then once I have that, then I'll have the maximum length I can have up on the front end. If I have to use the twist connectors, I'd rather use the little crimp butt connectors. For me, they end up providing a better connection. Do a little twist in here to keep all the wires tight together. I don't need very much, about a 1/4 inch. Gets all the way up to the connector. That's good and solid on the yellow. Let me do the same thing on the brown. But I'm going to leave a little loop under here at the same time, just in case I ever have to change out the wire. I'll still have a little bit of excess left. We live out in the country, so you hear a lot of farm equipment coming by, pulling trailers and whatnot. I'm going to bring these around to the underside. Now for me, I found out it's easier to go ahead and have this held with this in place. So when I put the wire in there, everything's already lined up. Let's see if I can get this one going. Good, tight squeeze. There we go. And do the brown the same way. The brown wires are your running lights. The yellow and green wires are for your blinkers and stoplights. Now that I have this, I'm going to try and pull some excess wire back so that I know how short to make it on the other side. As you can see, I've got my white wire grounded to the frame, and also the white wire where the wires come into the trailer, that's also grounded on the other end. So the frame becomes part of the grounding circuit. I want to do the same thing I did on the other side. Now what I did was, remember I had excess wire. I grabbed both sets of wires and towards the front, and I pulled them back until I started to get a little bit snug with the yellow and brown wires on the driver's side. Now I should have some excess over here. Instead of having to hang it down where it's going to catch on something, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Leave myself enough for a little loop. Okay, that's held in place. Brown wire goes in and clamp. Here we go. Good solid clamp. These are nylon cable or wire holders. Put it over the wires, and then I use these Tech screws. I like these Tech screws a lot. I use them building electrical control panels and stuff too, but they've got the big flat head, and you can get the type. This isn't the type that's self-drilling, but this is the type for going into wood or whatever. So, but put that on there and just screw it into the bottom, and they're held up in place. Now the wire still can have some slide on there and stuff. Now for this first one here, I'm gonna put a little loop. And this is why I moved the trailer out to clean out from under it first, because I knew I would be laying down on the ground here. Go ahead and put another one up here behind the wheels. Well, the trailer got finished. I guess I never followed up on it. Well, you can see the trailer's got the new wood in there, and I've got it stacked with blocks and a little bit of concrete back there in the back. I'm gonna raise this raised bed by 1 block level,